Ho ho buddies, welcome to Borderline Games. I'm Gareth and today we're playing Chaos Head. Last time, we were talking to Fez on the underpass. And she said that we need to do something spiritually to get our D-Sword, and the D-Sword that we have is a piece of shit. Basically, we need to get a new D-Sword. We also saw Ban and Masumi. Ban's totally lost it into his he's into his conspiratory hole, talking about different gravitational pulls and how because of the gravity young people are coming into Shibuya. Is that the town's name? I think it is, right? Shibuya. Anyway, let's go get a D-Sword. So the last thing we saw was Fez disappearing into the darkness. I should say Fez's because there were two of them for some weird reason. The one that we'd imagined and the actual Fez. Which is interesting. So eventually her figure disappeared completely. And now all that remained was the eerie silence of the underpass. I wasn't brave enough to yell after her. I was too exhausted to run after her. And I was overwhelmed with the feeling that it wasn't worth the trouble. In the end, all I could do was return home as cautiously as I could, making sure not to be spotted by Yua or the police on the way. It felt like it'd been ages since I'd been at my base, but in reality, it'd only been half a day. I'd left my computer on, leaving my Serotan screensaver to cast a pale light together with her smile across the dark room. I locked the door tightly from the inside and threw myself onto the sofa. When I closed my eyes, I couldn't help but remember everything that had happened today. I couldn't believe even the police thought I was the culprit. They had it all wrong. There was absolutely no way I could have killed those people. Investigate like you actually give a shit. This isn't a game. Otaku freaks like myself were ostracized by society. So they must have thought that they could just pin the crime on one of us. Oh, hello. Sorry, 1 second. Just going to mute my phone. So they must have thought that they could have just pinned the crime on one of us and the public wouldn't even bat an eye. They couldn't actually catch the real culprit. So they wanted to save face by using me as a scapegoat. Damn it. What could I do to clear my name? Speak to you. The scene at Cafe flashed before my eyes, sending a chill down my spine. There existed someone that was even more terrifying than the police. Yua, my enemy. I'd been so unbelievably relieved that I hadn't heard anything from her recently. I had been growing more and more confident that she'd never contact me again. I feel like she's going to appear right now. But today I'd realised that I'd been mistaken. In order to oppose all of them, I needed a D-Sword. I glanced at the cheap sword that was leaning against my PC desk. It was a fake. Ayase had said that only people with the power can see them. Ayase is Fez, I think, right? The day I'd bought my sword, Nanami had seen me with it. And unlike Ayase and Senna's swords, it didn't glow. Where would a real one be? I had to get my hands on one as soon as possible. If I didn't, I was doomed. Getting wrapped up in something this insane, it sucked so much. Sucked feels like not a strong enough word. Oh man, this sucks. All these people dying and I'm getting the blame. You have DRD. Multiple personalities. No, that's not true. That's impossible. Multiple personality disorders are supposed to be rare in Japan. Are they? Why? You've been watching way too many goddamn movies, Yua. I didn't have multiple personalities. There's no proof of that at all. Oh, there's the proof. Not true. It's not true. But that chat log is consistent with what you had told me. That's all fabricated. It can't be considered proof. But there's no proof that I don't have multiple. There's no proof that I don't have multiple personalities. It's thrown off by the fact that "don't" is not italicized. You'd imagine that the highlighted word would be this one, through it being italicized. Am I making sense? My doctor never diagnosed me with multiple personalities. But that very doctor, Dr. Takashina, is now gone for some unknown reason. I'm me. I know that better than anyone. But I don't actually know myself. I felt chills on the nape of my neck. The usual presence. Someone was watching me. The unknown gaze. Whose eyes are those eyes? Yeah, that's right, it's Shogun. He's the killer. That's what it said in the chat log, right? And Yua is one of Shogun's underlings. The new gen cases were all Shogun. But does Shogun truly exist? Are you sure he isn't just a delusion? I'm normal. I'm completely normal. Right? I clutched my head and shouted out to no one in particular, but what I got in reply was, "You've got mail, you big dum-dum." Oh, is that Sarah? Is that the Sarah notification sound? Did he set that up? I sluggishly made my way over to the computer and checked my email. The sender was grim. "Found something interesting," was the subject line. It was probably just bait, and the contents of the email were meant to fuck with me. I didn't have the energy to deal with him personally right now, so I stuck to just reading the email. "Nighthawk-kun, why haven't you joined the chat room at all lately? You haven't been on ESO either, so I had no choice but to email you. Mewtube.com 3485. I would have told you to watch this vid because it's seriously fucked. I know what you're thinking, it's probably just Grim fucking with me, but no. It was recorded by the new gen perb. The net's going absolutely insane over it. Hurry up and watch it before you miss the hype." Shaking my head. Alright, a video that's been recorded by the new gen culprit. My fingertips on the mouse began to tremble. I couldn't take my eyes off the email. Did that mean the killer was in the video? Who was it? No. Was it me? I both wanted to see it and didn't want to at the same time. This was the proof. Proof that I wasn't the killer. Or proof that I was the killer. Which one would it be? Which one it would be? I didn't know. It was a gamble. Feeling my heart begin to beat faster and faster, I moved the mouse cursor and hovered over the link. But I couldn't work up the courage to click the URL. Want to help you. Shut up. Don't treat me like a criminal. Don't act like you feel sorry for me. I didn't do it. You're the one on the criminal's side, Yua. In an intense fit of rage, I clicked on the URL. Ooh. It was a Mewtube video. The word loading appeared in the corner of the window. In the video window. It's not me, 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 etc. In reality, it only took about 10 seconds for the video to load, but those 10 seconds felt like an eternity to me. 10 seconds is a long time for a video to load. You can tell this game was made in 2008 or whenever it was made. 10 seconds. Eventually it finished loading and the video started to play. Oh? It was a video of a very dark place. The background was pitch black. Maybe it was indoors. Well, doesn't look like it's indoors. I leaned my head in close to the monitor, trying my best to pass the information on the screen. It was dark and therefore hard to see, but there were several men and women there. They were all making a ton of noise. Maybe it was because the bitrate was too low, or maybe because the people in the video were too distant, but I couldn't make out a single thing they were saying. Every once in a while, whenever someone screamed violently, the sound would clip horribly. After watching for a bit longer, I was able to determine that there were 5 people in the video. If you included the cameraman, it'd be 6. The cameraman didn't enter the frame at all. Because of how dark it was, the faces of the 5 people were just barely visible. As though to comfort one another, they were caressing each other's heads, patting each other's shoulders and hugging. I could also hear the high-pitched sobbing of a girl, likely overcome with emotion. It was definitely bizarre, but how did this video have any connection to New Gen? Was the person filming this really the New Gen culprit? At the very least, I knew I had no memory of recording something like this. And then, after a short while, the camera, or rather the person holding the camera, began to slowly move forward. The 5 subjects, who were about 5 meters away from the cameraman, gradually grew larger and larger. The picture was fairly grainy. Maybe the original image data was re-encoded at an extremely low bitrate in order to reduce its size. A modern video camera should have a night vision function, so I wondered why the cameraman hadn't made use of it. Could it have been an older camera? As soon as I thought that, the camera suddenly panned to the left and then to the right, showing the surrounding scenery. What I had initially thought was the pitch-black darkness of a room was actually the night sky. In other words, the video had been recorded outdoors. As for the reason why there wasn't a single building or anything, it was because the video had been taken on the roof of a skyscraper. The 5 people were on the edge of the roof of a very tall building. Right behind them was the ledge, and right below that ledge was the glittering nightscape of Shibuya. Shibuya was right. I thought it was. It could only be seen at high altitudes. This is... Finally, I understood. I finally understood what this video was. I finally understood why it was said to have been recorded by the New Gen culprit. The group dive. A locked room mystery in which a group of 5 men and women jumped from the roof of Cornelius Tower. The sole fact that remained unclear about New Gen was whether or not this specific incident was a murder case or a group suicide. If this video was of 5 people who'd jumped to their deaths, then that would mean that there'd been a 6th person at the scene when the incident occurred. The 5 people shown in the video hadn't just been making noise for the sake of it. They were all slumped down on the ground, crying and shouting as they huddled together. They all refused to give up despite the fact that they were fated to die soon. One was shaking their head in denial as they cried. One was clutching their hair tightly as they fell to their knees, their shoulders heaving with each sob. One was pleading with the cameraman as they sobbed, asking why they were doing this. One had already gone mad and was laughing as tears streamed down his face. It was a rabid, violent desire to stay alive, a fervent, intense plea to not die. Disconsolate indignation that screamed, "Why is this happening to us?" Innumerable raw emotions swirled around the group. Yet, in a bizarre juxtaposition, the cameraman's voice was never once heard. The cameraman was eerily calm. Stop it. Stop it! No matter how much I pleaded with the footage that had been taken nearly a month ago, nothing was going to change. I knew full well that it was meaningless, but I subconsciously screamed at my monitor all the time. No, all the same. These people don't want to die. What is that? Is that a wheelchair I can hear? Something metallic? With no possible way for my words to reach them, the cameraman was holding moved even closer to the 5 people. Terrified, the 5 of them all tried to crawl away, to get away from the camera. But they couldn't. Right behind them was the very edge of the helipad. There was no guardrail of any kind. The 5 of them had nowhere to go. If they moved back even a little bit farther, they'd fall. Refusing to heed the five's pleas for their lives, the cameraman continued to focus solely on filming, as if to agitate the five all the more. He had driven them completely to the edge, to the point where they took no further action at all. Then, without any sort of cue, nor any form of signalling one another, the five people who'd all been crying out in grief suddenly fell silent. Then they all stood up. The wind on the rooftop of the Cornelius Tower was powerful. Beckoned by the wind, the five of them nearly staggered. If there was even the slightest misstep, they'd fall. As if in preparation for such a thing, the five men and women all joined hands, seemingly in resignation. They grasped each other's hands tightly. "Stop! Stop it! Don't be crazy!" Silence. It seemed to me that even the sound of the wind whipping violently through the air had stopped. All I could hear was the sound of cars driving along Chateau Expressway at the foot of the building. Even then, the cameraman did not make a single move. And then, a single person among the five whispered, "Whose eyes are those eyes?" Ooh, it's creepy. I froze in front of the monitor, feeling as though my heart was being strangled by an ice-cold hand. Why? Why those fucking words again? Wasn't this supposed to be the first new-gen case? Whose eyes are those eyes had been the dying message from the vampire case, and that one came forth. This didn't make any goddamn sense. Paying no mind to the screaming inside my head, the video continued to play. Hand in hand, the five men and women slowly stepped out into the empty air, almost as if there was a path laid out before them. And then, just like that, the five fell into the nightscape of the big city. I bit my lip and covered my eyes. Alright. The group dive hadn't been a mass suicide. It too was a murder case. The culprit had been there when it had happened. And as for who'd filmed the video, I knew who it was. Mixed in with the sound of the strong wind on the rooftop. Mixed in with the sound of the five people crying out in grief. Mixed in with the blaring horns from Chateau Expressway below. I was certain that I'd heard one particular faint sound. It was the sound of creaking steel. Yeah, I heard it too. A sound that could only be heard when the cameraman was moving forward. The sound of a wheelchair. What appeared in front of me back then was real. The camera's line of sight was far too low. Shogun. Ooh, the mystery thickens. Does it thicken or does it deepen? It thickens, right? Chapter 4 finished. And then chapter 5, delusion, right? Is that what it said? To no one's surprise, the leaked video of the group dive exploded. Grimmer told me that the entire internet was going insane, and lo and behold, he wasn't lying. A huge chunk of that channel was now convinced that all four new-gen murders had been committed by the same person. I can't read what that says. Too long, don't read. Didn't read, whatever. I know what that means. Was written out at the scene of the vampire yet. That means there's a connection between the first and the last case, despite all the people saying they had nothing to do with each other. Which then means that the man, child, and crucifixion cases also have to be connected. I'm getting way into this. Whose eyes are those eyes? Also, Weight's first appearance was the vampire case, so it couldn't possibly have copied the group dive. No, don't look. Smoke we ate every day. Whose eyes are those eyes is what that means, right? I saw the video, but it looks fake as shit. Some actors just did it for views. I bet one Perica on it. Perica. I saw the video. That's what I just read. You twats really ought to stop using whose eyes or whatever the fuck so often. The killer just wants attention and you're giving it to him. The same dude did all the new gen murders. Oh my god! Whose eyes are those eyes? Okay. Nah, the tower in that vid's actually just 2 meters tall and there's a trampoline or something below it. Lamau. Agreed. If that phrase keeps getting a trend, there will keep being more murders. You all need to tone the fuck down. It's not just a meme anymore. And then he says that. I live in Shibuya. Obligatory, don't look. Okay, it's topping the charts. The view count, it's skyrocketing. It's so brutal. Don't look, guys. Lamau. Time to make the MHK News top report. 111. Woot! What else we got here? Let's have a look through. There we go. The news on the TV was just as erratic. Like 140 had said. Every available station, save for 2TV, had been interrupted by the breaking news they'd played the leaked video on loop. The broadcast had lasted for about an hour. It was pretty shocking to see that the footage had actually been broadcast across the entire country. Of course, all the stations censored the part where they dived off the building at the end, but it was still extremely impactful. The opinions of those on TV were more or less the exact same as everyone else's online. They all attributed to the 4 new gen cases to the same culprit. They all attributed the 4 new gen cases to the same culprit. I can read fine. Thank you very much. Then again, that wasn't really much of a surprise. They had finally found a common denominator between them after all. Whose eyes are those eyes? It had become a popular phrase all throughout Shibuya. The phrase had first been shown to the world when the details behind the 4th case the vampire had been were shared. People then learned that the victims of the group dive had said it as well, even though it had occurred a month before the vampire case. In the 4 incidents that had occurred so far, it had been used in both the first and the last one. It had to mean something. It made the theory that a single person was behind the murders all the more probable. The police then held a press conference stating that they intended to identify the person who'd posted the video as soon as they could. A number of politicians commented that the actions of the culprit were completely deplorable and that they needed to be apprehended immediately. I mean, of course. What are you talking about? The Mewtube video had been removed by the moderator less than 3 hours after it was uploaded, but by then it was too late. Channel had already gotten their hands on it, and from there nothing could have stopped it from being re-uploaded and spreading like wildfire. And then, just before midnight, the following facts had been revealed through a police statement. The group dive video was uploaded from a computer located in Shibuya manga cafe known as At Cafe. Whoa! It was uploaded from a specific private room in the facility, room number 37. Oh my god. Takumi's gonna go crazy. I sat paralyzed in my seat, my head hanging low as I hugged myself tightly. Without realizing it, I had started eavesdropping. I was becoming hypersensitive to the voices coming from my surroundings. I overheard a lot of conversations, and unsurprisingly, the group dive video was the topic on everyone's minds. Some girls were even jokingly saying to each other, "Whose eyes are those eyes?" I bit my lip and let my gaze wander onto the surface of my desk. That video was evidence. Evidence that Shogun actually existed. Evidence that I hadn't killed anyone. It proved that I didn't have multiple personalities, that the old looking man in the wheelchair was the new gen killer. But why would Shogun even upload it? Why would he hint at himself being the killer when the culprit's identity had been shrouded in mystery so far? Only 2 explanations made sense to me. 1, Shogun was showing off by killing people because it amused him. which was pretty likely considered that that time when he'd appeared in front of me. Or he was trying to provoke me. For some reason, Shogun and his underling Yua were doing everything in their power to fuck with me. I didn't know the reason why, I just knew that they were trying to frame me as the new gen culprit. At this point, even the police were probably suspicious of me. Shogun was trying to corner me.
Did you receive my message? You must awaken. Quickly. Because if you don't, many more people are going to die. Don't forget. You mustn't run away.
When he'd appeared in front of me, that was what he'd said. It felt like he'd been trying to intimidate me, and that he was basically saying, I'm going to kill you too, don't you dare run away. And now he totally blindsided me by uploading that video and making sure that it spread all throughout Japan. There was no doubt that Shogun had moved his plan to the next phase. It's a bit naive to think that I wasn't being targeted anymore. If anything, it'd be more accurate to say that his plotting against me had moved from passive to active. It was now finally in full swing. I was terrified, especially of that video. Shogun had killed 5 high schoolers without even lifting a finger, despite being even worse off physically than me. If all the new gen cases were actually his doing, then all those other gruesome murders, the man-child, crucifixion and vampire, had all been enacted by that very same frail body. Or maybe Yua had helped him out. In any case, I didn't have any faith that I'd be able to defend myself against people who'd commit such horrible atrocities. Just thinking of them sent chills down my spine. Chills that combined with the red hot anger I was feeling. Why was I being targeted like this? What did I do to deserve it? And there was also that message. Whose eyes are those eyes? If I wasn't careful, I'd start trembling uncontrollably. To keep that under control, I had to keep my body from relaxing. I had to always be aware of my surroundings and be ready to bolt the second I sensed someone approaching. Just anybody. I didn't know when Shogun or Yua would show themselves again. Hell, I'd no guarantee that Yua was Shogun's only underling. Maybe even my own classmates were under his influence, their laughter and idle chatter acting as mere camouflage until just the right moment. I had to find a way to parry surprise attacks like this one like the one in At Cafe yesterday. If I didn't, I'd be killed next time for sure. I needed to get a D-sword ASAP. The only way out of this was to get a D-sword ASAP. I'd internalized what Ayase and Sina had said, and I'd searched online about it, and it all had me convinced. Getting my hands on a D-sword would save me. The night before, I desperately tried to gather information on D-swords while keeping an eye on the new gen shitstorm, but my research barely bore any results. Huh? What is it? I cradled my head, tearing at my greasy hair. How was I supposed to find a D-sword?
You must find it in yourself. Find it by yourself. I know not of any methods.
Ayase had said that, but that was barely even a hint. My thoughts weighed heavily on me. I was starting to freak out. My heart was steadily getting crushed by anxiety. I needed to hurry and find a D-sword. Whatever it took, I had to find one. If I didn't, I'd be done for. Before becoming New Gen's next victim, I had to find one, and then I'd become New Gen's victim. But I needed to find out how. I had no clue how he was supposed to get one. I needed some kind of hint, something, anything. I had to figure it out fast or I'd lose my chance of finding it. Was I even capable of finding one? This was no time to be at school. It was my own life, or graduating. I didn't need to debate which one was more important. Graduating. And yet, why was I? Sensing someone approaching me, I quickly raised my head and braced myself for contact.
Whoa, talk about making me jump.
Mimi was standing there, blinking repeatedly as if she'd been stunned by my sudden movement. I made you jump. Stop scaring me like that. All the stress in my body released at once and I crumpled on top of my desk with a big sigh.
Are you okay, Taku?
Fulfilling her usual quota, Rumi peered into my face. I hurriedly lowered my eyes.
Look, kinda pale. And you're sweating buckets. And your eyes are bloodshot. Not good at all.
Was Rumi with me or against me? An ally or an enemy? After she'd saved me, I'd grown a lot less wary of her. But there was still a ton of unanswered questions that I had yet to figure out. Like, why she'd been covered in blood at the scene of the crucifixion. Or how we were supposed to be such good friends, and that we'd been classmates since our first year, yet I had no recollection of it.
Are you feeling okay? Do you need to go to the nurse?
Rumi tilted her head slightly, a worried expression on her face. No, I'm fine. I turned away from her. I couldn't say it to her face. When the classes for the day finally ended, I felt like every ounce of energy had been drained from my body. Even during class, all I'd done was remain on high alert, repeatedly scanning my surroundings. I hadn't slept since yesterday, but staying this vigilant kept me wide awake. The school day felt like an eternity, and the sheer amount of time I'd spent there sent me spiraling into a deep depression. Why is it that the way we perceive time changes depending on our mood? Why is it that the way we perceive time changes depending on our mood? Depends, I think. Right? Depends on our mood. Some say that time flows at a constant rate, but that might not actually be true. The speed of time changes depending on each person's subjective perspective. I've always theorized that it's a conspiracy to homogenize humanity's understanding of the concept of time by implementing units like seconds and hours, also they can deceive people into forgetting that the perception of time varies from person to person. And building off that theory, if the length of time is dependent on each person's perception, then conversely, doesn't that mean that the flow of time can be controlled at will? Interesting. As I thought about that, I remembered Cena talking about controlling other people's wills. And conversely...
With this technology, even those who've been blind from birth will be able to accurately view anything that the eyes can naturally perceive. This is made possible by using video equipment such as video cameras.
Video data from a camera is converted into electrical signals that are sent directly to the brain, causing the person to observe that sequence of images. Conversely, that would mean converting the images from a person's that a person observes into electrical signals, then sending them to equipment that can render video. The aforementioned equipment didn't have to be a video camera either. For example, what would happen if you connected a person to a hard disk recorder, then showed them recordings of someone's vacation? What if instead of real-life recordings you showed them an anime? Technically, anime is 2D and therefore delusionary. But people who are blind from birth have never seen anything from the 3D world. So if they were shown an anime and told this is how the world is, then they would believe that the 2D world is reality, right? To that person, that delusion would be their reality, a delusion perceived as reality. Okay, which are we going to do? Let's do a little ready this time. I've not done a red one in a while. Here's another example. If person A sent an image from their brain to a hard disk recorder that processed it and transmitted the image to person B's brain, then person A's delusion would become person B's reality. Takumi's really breaking things down here. Delusion becoming reality. In theory, it will be possible. Holy shit, I was a genius, Lamau. I was over the moon by how brilliant my theory was. Maybe that was how I'd acquired a D-sword. Ayase had said that something to do with delusions, hadn't she? Alright, I should hurry up and go home so I can look it up. Here we go, delusion time! Where are we? I left the classroom and started heading toward the school entrance. But partway there I changed my mind and instead turned and headed toward the building where the first year classrooms were located. I figured it might be a better idea to avoid the entrance I usually took. I couldn't rule out the possibility that Shogun and Yua were lying in wait to ambush me. So I opted to leave using a different route. I made my way to the first year building via the breezeway. The final bell had finally rung out a little bit ago. So while the students on cleaning duty or doing club shit were still around, basically everyone who'd opted to go straight home already had. School always felt somewhat lonely or even wistful after the final bell rang. No matter where I went, it always felt that way, whether they were ancient buildings made out of wood or newer structures like sumai. Well, not that I'd ever set foot in a wooden school building in anything other than a roge. Regardless, the school's interior was simmering under a thick veil of silence. I walked quickly down the hall, surrounded by that silence, trying my best to keep my footsteps as quiet as possible. The setting... Oh! Did you guys hear that? The setting sun shining through the windows warmed me. Uh-oh. Typically I kept my head low while I walked, but since there weren't any other students I opted to keep my eyes focused on what was ahead of me. This allowed me the chance to survey my environment, ensuring that there were no suspicious figures lurking about. I heard something. A sound. What was that? I feel like I've heard it before. And we'll find out exactly what it was next time on Borderline Games. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Chaos Head, and I will see you next time. Have a good evening. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. Bye.